There we go. Hello, hello, hello. I feel like it's the first day of the rest of my life. The intro played correctly. I'm not one giant, blurry, amorphous blob of moving target. So I think that this is all going to be a great day. Hi, I am Dr. Rita Louise. Welcome to Monday Night Live with Dr. Rita Louise. I'm your host. And I am going to start by talking about a topic, and then I will open up the comments and take your reading. Hi, Mike. No one else is here, so I'll say hi to you before I get started. But now I'm going to totally ignore you while I do my little intro thing. So this is going to sound kind of like a complaint. And, I don't mean it to come off complainy, because one of my goals for 2023 is to not complain. But I'm half Jewish, so it's just kind of part of who we are. But it's not really as much of a complaint as I'm using it as a launching point to talk about my topic today. And I want to talk about that foreboding topic, religion. So last week, because I know the people that did this don't listen to this, last week I got dumped by a friend of mine, now ex-friend of mine, because of my religious beliefs, which I found really interesting. But when you survey people from around the world, the overwhelming majority of people believe in God or some kind of higher power that reigns over us, controls over us, that we can be in contact and connection with and communication with. And many years ago, I heard this phrase that said, there's only one God and many paths to it. And our wonderful co-host, Cindy U-Turn Stash, who I've not seen, posed a hello, so hopefully she'll show up. She and I were having a whole conversation about this, and she put it into a very contextual way. Her comment was, there's only one Miami Beach, but you can get there by driving from the north to the south. You can get there driving from the south to the north, or from the, I'll have to say, west to the east. I guess you could take a boat from the east to the west to get to Miami Beach, but you can get there by walking. You can take a bus, you can fly, you can drive. You could even, helicopter in. And so, but in the end, however you get there, you're all going to end up at Miami Beach. It's not like I have my Miami Beach and you somehow have some different Miami Beach somewhere. I mean, I'm hoping not. So this is kind of for my YouTube people, or who are used to me talking about ancient mysteries and ancient civilizations. So I figured this would just slide right into this whole thing. But when you survey cultures from around the globe and their belief systems, what you find is that the base philosophy for all of these cultures are primarily the same. And it's the dogma that the individual groups that say, my God's better than your God, that makes there really be any difference. So, for example, in pretty much every culture, they believe in, and I'm going to use the more indigenous way of saying this, in the concept of ritual purification, where a person is immersed in water, where water is sprayed on them, where water is poured on them, and that cleanses the body and cleanses the soul to make them be proper to interface in some kind of ritual situation. And so we find that in every Judeo-Christian tradition, this concept of baptism. Same with circumcision. I always thought that circumcision was a rite that was exclusive to Judeo-Christian cultures. But upon further exploration, I have discovered that circumcision is carried out, I don't want to say in every culture around the world, but it is carried out by a lot of cultures around the world. In Judeo-Christian terms, babies are circumcised, where in these other cultures, circumcision happens at puberty and it's considered a rite of passage, and so if you aren't circumcised, you're not considered a man. The use of incense or some kind of burning plant or mineral, whatever, is used to shift the energy. And also the use of ritual, whether it's meditation, whether it is sitting in prayer, whether it is dancing, whether it is singing. Those things are used to help people open their channels up, open their pathways up, so that they can better communicate and be a more open channel to receiving divine insight from this higher power, whatever you want to call him, it, whatever. And all of this material I discuss in my book, Stepping Out of Eden. Here, I'm going to give myself a little shameless plug, Stepping Out of Eden. But I just think that it's sad. And here's the complaint part. I think that it's sad that people can't see past their own dogma. Somebody somewhere said, well, this is bad. And people take that to heart and say, well, everybody that doesn't believe what I believe is bad. And I don't know, I guess I kind of have a little bit of a problem with that, because to me, and this is my viewpoint, you're either a good person and have a good, kind heart and soul, or you're not a good person. You're either trying to get to Miami Beach or you're not. And those are the things that someone should be judged, not judged, but looked at from, versus, well, I took my private jet versus you took the city bus. So that's my little complaining. I'm just vetching here to all of you. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to say hello to people that have come into the chat room. If you would like a reading, here, let me put my cute little banner up. Bam. If you would like a reading, please post your detailed question in the chat box. And the questions, it doesn't have to be for a reading. It could just be a question that you would like answered, whether it's about auras and chakras or an ancient mystery, or if you want my opinion on one thing or another. I mean, it's pretty much a open forum for you to ask whatever. And if I don't know, I'll say I don't know. But if you ask about dead people, or if you want me to predict the future, that isn't happening. I don't talk to dead people. And sometimes I can take a question that wants me to predict the future and rephrase it into something else. And sometimes I can't, but I'm just putting that out as a general guideline. Okay, so let me just go through. Hey, Mike. Hey, Shermanator Osborne from YouTube. Hey, Miss Claudia. Hey, Dave. So, Dave, the backgrounds tend to change, depending on what the topic is, or at least that's the goal. So since I was talking about religion and the unity of religion and beliefs that we find around the planet, I thought that this was a very appropriate background to use. We have Ken, who talks about one God, many paths. And then he suggests that in Kabbalah, there are 22 paths. But Ken, in the Kabbalah, the 22 paths really talk about the paths of our inner functioning, in the past specifically. And Well, and I guess certain ones in the past, or depending on how you look at it, will depend on our relationship to source or the enso or whatever term you want to use to address that. But usually when you talk about path work, you're talking about our internal workings and how, I'll say it this way, how spirit moves through us and where we are open, where we are blocked, and use that as a way to make changes within ourselves. So great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So Shermanator. Okay. So Ken, Mike. Okay. So I went through everybody. So anybody have any questions? Come on, Mike. I know you're always good for a question. Um, when I first started looking at, my, oh, don't already start. All right, Wesley, Christina, you need to just go. Claudia Lowry doesn't want to inbox you to get a great message from her ancestors. But if you're here to get a reading, I would be happy to answer one for you. But please stop messaging everybody in my chat. Thank you. Goodbye. Um, I know. I just feel like, such a crank. These people come here and it's just so disrespectful for them to come and try to pull people out of here. Um, but when I started looking at, because one of the things I was interested in was this connection to spirit, this connection to source. And so I started looking at cultures around the world, and it was remarkable to me. One, well, if there was information available, the commonalities, and I'm going to say of the rituals themselves, the we do this and we pick up the crystal and we cleanse that and we do these very specific action oriented tasks. What is sad is that when ethnographers went into many of these countries, when they first went into Australia, when they first went into New Zealand, when they first came into the Americas, instead of being curious about their religion and their spiritual practices, all they wanted to do was stamp them out. And so while we don't see that in the Americas, but we do see that in Australia and New Zealand, where, these anthropologists would go in and chronicle their actions and their behaviors, but they never really took the time or energy to understand why they were doing it in the first place. Now, and I don't remember, I think their last name was Keaty. This one couple did a lot of work and actually lived with the Bushmen. And so from them, you actually find out what they were interested, um, what they were trying to do and what the rituals created for them, and they would perform these rituals of chanting and dancing and potentially taking hallucinogenic drugs in order to escape this world and move into a higher level of consciousness so that they could access higher wisdom for themselves, for their community, etc., etc. But we don't find that in many other chronicles that you find around the world. Again, because the Westerners, because they were superior, uh, got rid of it, got rid of all of them. From what I understand, the Maya, for example, had thousands and thousands of books. And the conquistadors came in and they burned them all. And so now we have four. And it just makes my heart ache. Thinking about like the Library of Alexandria, how much wisdom was there, that ancient wisdom was there that we will never recover and never know about again. And people like Graham Hancock talk about, well, we're a culture in, that we have, oh, that thing where you can't remember anything like I'm having right now. That we don't remember our history, and it just makes me wonder if in the annals and the cubby holes in the Library of Alexandria, or in the Vatican basement, there are texts that actually document remoter history than we have access to. I mean, we did glean a lot from the Sumerians about their religion, their culture, their belief systems, because their documents were written in clay, and we have found libraries of these documents. But those, the Sumerians, and that's really about it. I mean, we have some material that comes out of Egypt. In China, when one of the emperors, the first emperor came in, he burned everything. And so we have, that's the word amnesia, and so there is this amnesia for who we are and where we come from, because we choose to slice and dice it out, because obviously these primitive people can't possibly know what they're talking about or anything they're doing. Okay, so I think Mike has a question. Sometimes he's a little scary to click on things, but we'll look anyway. Have we evolved spiritually as humans? Have we? Okay, that's a really interesting question. And okay, so all right, so I'm going to kind of separate this out into two different areas. Um, from a material perspective, we have more technology than our ancestors did. Um, and I have to caveat that with, unless you're talking about some of the very ancient structures, the pyramids, Sacsayhuaman, the temple, whatever in Cusco, some of these megalithic monuments that we don't know how they got built. My feeling about those is that they weren't created by humanity, that they were actually erected by the giants who lived on the planet before humanity really took over, which is why we don't know how they got built. But as far as humans are concerned, materially, we are more advanced, but spiritually, we are so devolved than where we were before. One of the things about indigenous cultures was, and I've been kind of talking about this, is the whole ritual experience. So one of the things that would happen, so let's say it is summer solstice and they're going to have a big celebration, and all of the clans are going to get together in one place to do this celebration. So traditionally, and I'm kind of talking in a global sense here, about a week before the festivities, they would start working on the property, and the land that it was going to be on, it would be cleared and cleansed and blessed to ensure that they were going to have a good event. People who were going to potentially be part of the ritual and attempt to connect with these higher sources would many times fast or do things to ritually purify themselves to make them more open to receiving this level of communication. Uh, Ritual costumes and ritual painting was done on the body. Ritual food was made, and so when I talk about ritual, there was a solemnity. They would do it with intention. They would do it so that they would achieve the highest level of work. It's kind of like when you put your Christmas tree up, and you look, and this ornament has to go here, and this ornament has to go there. There's a level of intention that it come out right. And that's what I'm talking about. When they would do things in a ritual way, there would be a level of intention. But when you do things in a mindful way with intention, it helps to clear you out. When they would start their ritual celebrations, there would be singing, there would be dancing. Again, those things are mindfulness practices that help you focus on one thing, which allows all of the other crap you're holding on to leave. And so, in a more contemporary context, I'm sure we've all had experiences where we were in a bad mood and, we decided to go to the gym and we had a really good workout and we felt better. Or when my kids were young, I worked at Smirnoff, Starplex, Dos Equis Stadium, where I did security work, and you weren't supposed to dance, but they didn't pay me enough money to not dance. And there would be days that, cranky is a very nice word to use. But I'll tell you what, by the time the show was over, I would be in a great mood because I would get some really good dancing in, which again gave me the opportunity to let go, as they say, let go and let God. And so these cultures, this was part of their tradition. And so this was something everybody was involved with, and they didn't have EMFs and they didn't have phones and they didn't have computers to sit on all day. They were in nature. They moved around. They got exercise. And so their whole life was much more conducive to being more spiritually evolved than we are. The notion that you hear from, some Native American people or Aborigine from Australia, that they can communicate with the animals. Most people think that that's, either crazy stuff or crazy stuff. But when you are open and when your energy is flowing, those things are possible. But because we are so closed off from that dynamic, it causes us to be devolved, because who we are and our makeup is for us to be connected. And most of us are not, unless you take an active, take active participation in that process. Before it was part of daily life. Now it's something that you have to make the decision that you want to go do and you want to be part of your life, because there aren't those communities anymore. Great question. I kind of went on and on a bit, but that was a good question. It really fed into what I was talking about. Hi, Nancy. All right. All right. So, Ken, I don't really have an answer, but I'm going to post your question anyway. What's your opinion about the I Am Saint Germain movement started by Guy and Edna Ballard in the 30s, and the Summit Lighthouse movement started by Elizabeth Clare Prophet? And so I am sure I've read some Elizabeth Clare Prophet material, but that has been a really long time ago. Um, and so I don't have an opinion. Okay. All right, Mike, you just got okay, Ken, I'm going to come to you because that's a great question too. So, Mike, another great question. So, and you're really going to appreciate this answer. So his question is, did our ancestors have psychics and or mediums? And the answer to that is both. I mean, that would be one of the things that the shaman did. But I'm going to give an even more specific answer because we have documentation. And this comes out of, I have to think about this. The Law of Hammurabi. I don't know. It was out of one of the Sumerian legal text. It might have been Hammurabi, it might have been the one before that. And they had different levels of doctors. And there was an expectation that different kinds of doctors would get a different level of compensation. So obviously it was serious stuff. And so one level of doctor would be able to assess and identify what was wrong with you, as well as any like emotional things that were contributing to your illness, and then help you clear them. So that was the top tier doctor. The next tier doctor could work with you and look at you and identify if there are any curses placed on you or any like bad mojo that you were dealing with. And again, second tier. And then the third tier doctor was the one, and this I find really interesting, was the one who would fix a broken bone, who would give you herbs and supplements. I mean, unless they were going to be used for one of those other areas, to address your ailments. And it was only the doctors that more functionally and mechanically addressed your ailments that could be sued, where the other ones could not be sued. And again, I find that there are parallels all around the world. And so if you see it in something as ancient as in Sumeria, you can bet your bottom dollar that there are similar things in other cultures. And I'm going to move on because I could keep talking about that for forever. Okay. So Ken has an interesting question. Wow, no reading, but I am okay with that. But if you do have a reading, you can post your question. Dave or Claudia, if you're still watching. Okay, so Ken would like to know any opinions on the theories of evolution or creationism. I don't believe either one. Okay, so when you look at the mythic record, one of the things that you find is that there are no stories about evolution. God created the heavens and the earth and everything on it, and period. And so, from that perspective, I believe that, no, I'll just share what I believe. I believe that back in deep antiquity, and we're talking a couple of billion years ago, that a group of extraterrestrials came and terraformed the planet. And once the planet was terraformed, they created life on this planet. And from that life, and so within a species, there's a certain amount of evolution that can happen. You're in a warm climate, and so you have lighter hair or less thick hair versus you're in a colder climate. Those kind of things. You're bigger or smaller based on food sources. But when you look at the archaeological record, you do not see any cross-species evolution. You see one species, and then you see another species. And people used to point to the duck-billed platypus as this halfway kind of creature, because it's just weird. But anyway, and they would point their finger at that to show and prove that evolution is at work. But outside of that, there really aren't any examples of evolution. And even when you look at the line of man, and humanity, you find that there is Australopithecus, we'll just start there. There's Australopithecus, but you don't really see this, or they haven't they haven't found the missing link that takes Australopithecus into being the Homo variety. And when we have early Homo sapiens or early Homo like Homo hablatus, there's not anything that shows us how we went from Homo hablatus, which is the early tool users, into being Homo erectus. And to me, Homo erectus was really the beginning of humanity. There were such drastic changes that happened from its, just its predecessor to it, which included the early formation of culture, the early formation of art, the use of fire, the loss of body hair. I mean, there is a whole list of things that Homo erectus could do that is not seen, underline, is not seen in any of these earlier, and I'll say species of early man. And so while I do think that there's a certain amount of evolution that happens, I really do believe that there is or has been a hand that reached in and spurred things along to create new species. We have been looking at this material for a really long time, and other than finding species that were unidentified, we still haven't seen any transient species be created. And especially, you would think you would find that, like in the insect kingdom, where they're reproducing at a really great rate, and their environment is really being challenged between pesticides and human movement into more rural areas. But we don't even see that. A cockroach is a cockroach is a cockroach. And, thankfully, they don't become like jumbo intelligent cockroaches, because that would just be creepy. Okay. All right. Can I, you got these questions that, all right, so excellent answer, but where did the extraterrestrials come from and who terraformed the earth? Okay. So, and I just speak from myth. I mean, I could make some conjecture. It seems like, and this is really, and I'm quantifying this very specifically, this is me really kind of pulling it out my ass. But it appears in modern vernacular that there were a group of Nordics who were responsible for the genetic engineering, or at least the genetic material for the formation of humanity in the form that we know it. There were reptilians, are clearly identified in myth. Um, and after that, I mean, there were giants, but not the same kind of giants. The 9 to 12-foot giants were actually a creation of the gods on the earth that were predecessors of humanity. So where did they come from? I mean, there's mention of the Pleiades, there's mention of Sirius, there's mention of Draco, but after that, it's kind of far and few between. And when did they come and terraform the planet? So one of the things that we find in myth is that, okay, so at one point in time, the fertility gods, the half men, half serpent, reptile looking characters, were in control of the earth. And there was a war that occurred between the sky gods, the Caucasian looking Nordic people, and the fertility gods that lived on the earth. And the winner of the conquest was the sky gods. And it was after they took over control of the planet that the planet was terraformed. Good question. But we're talking, millions and millions and millions of years ago. All right. Ken, all right, so Ken, I'm gonna put this up, but which came first, DNA molecule or the intelligent designer who genetically engineered it? I don't know. I mean, kind of, I don't care really. Um, and if anybody sits there and says that they do know, I would maybe run away, from them. Okay. All right. So, anybody else have any questions or want a reading or anything like that? Not even Wesley Christina, who wants Claudia to inbox her. Shermanator, any questions? Okay. So let's see. What else can I talk about? Mm. Here, I have a piece of paper here. Yes, I would like a life reading. Ken, you got to ask a way better question than I would like a life reading. It needs to be like a fairly specific question, then tell me something. Um, one of the things that I have observed is that, well, I'm not even sure that that's the right word to use. Since I'm kind of talking about religion and our connection with God and connection with Source, is that when people are in connection with this higher power, um, they tend to not, their intentions tend to become pure. As we ascend the ladder and get closer, we move away from ego, which wants stuff and wants its agenda met, and move more into, I'm going to say a selfless, open area. And so I have been asked, about changes in people. And one of the things that I've noticed, and this might sound kind of weird, is that, hey, Lauren, if you have a question, just please post it in the question box. But thanks for coming. But one of the things that this whole pandemic has done is it really has made people go inside and question what's important for them, and to kind of not just look outside, but to look inside and identify what they want and where they're going. And to me, that little mindfulness practice is the first stage of awakening. And as we become more open and more aware of our connection in the world, it really becomes impossible, not impossible, but not likely that you're going to go do something that is reprehensible. It opens us up to our morality. It opens us up to our empathic feelings, and opens us up to our concern and opens us up to the concern of other people and humanity. And I'm going to put up Ken's questions, and then I'm going to smack your hand, Ken. Okay. Okay, so this is the kind of question not to ever ask, because this is, hey, predict the future. Will I live a long life and die of old age, or will I die tragically or before my time? Am I in danger? I mean, other than that being totally an unethical question to answer, it's predicting the future. And Ken, there's where you are sitting right now and the life path that you're showing me, but it doesn't mean that you can't walk outside And while you're getting into your car in a parking lot, some idiot doesn't come and take you out, and so answering a question like that and quote unquote predicting the future, in my opinion, just doesn't work, because there's our life path and then there's what happens with other people. And not that you can't have precognitive moments where you can give someone insights like that. But if there's someone who repeatedly says, oh, this is going to happen to you in the future, this is going to happen in the future, unless they have a clear cut history of actually being accurate, I would blow it off. So, future predicting question, not going to answer, but I did kind of give you my 2 cents. Okay, Ron C., you totally can ask a question, but don't make it like Ken. Ken, I love you, but maybe a different question would be better. Okay, so we have a question from Lauren. Okay, now see, this is a perfect question. How can I reconnect with my oldest daughter? All right, let's see. Okay, so Lauren, I kind of get the impression that, so when I look at your relationship with your daughter, I mean, right in this moment, I just feel like her energy is just really turned away from you. And anything you can or do say right now, she will just so not listen to. It would be like talking to a brick wall. Um, but I do want to share this, and then I'm going to kind of keep with my commentary. I do want to share this. I mean, I feel like your daughter does love you, and I don't. So if that has been, I'm going to say a concern of yours, um, don't take it that way. I get the impression that, she's still kind of in the youngish area, maybe immature, and I feel like she's really trying to figure things out herself. So maybe the best thing to do is just give her that space so that she can figure things out for herself. One of the things that I'm feeling, and please forgive how this is going to come out, is that, and hopefully you're going to understand and hear what I'm saying, is that you're kind of sending out a lot of energy to her, and it's like, communicate with me, and it's overpowering to her, and it's just easier to put up a shield. So maybe just back off and allow her to come back in time. I do feel like she will come back. I just feel like I just feel like there's a lot on her plate and that she just really wants to do this by herself. Okay, so Ron, I'm going to come to you, but I'm going to do this little follow up with Lauren. She's 32 and cut me off 2 years ago, not just from her. She won't allow me to even see pictures of my grandchildren. Again, Lauren, I feel like backing off your energy. I feel like, and I'm kind of talking from her energy perspective, that it's just too much. It's too much. I mean, I keep seeing her kind of like blocking your energy from her. I mean, I think you can pray for her if that's what you do. Send her healing, send her light, send her love. Um, so, and then she went on, I haven't tried to contact her or the children in respect for her boundaries. And I think that's the best thing that you can do. Um, I am going to make one comment, though, about the contact. Um, I would send a birthday card to the grandchildren, maybe a small gift. You know, if you feel it's not appropriate to send anything to her out of respect, I think that that's fine. Um, but I don't feel like it would be untoward to send something to those grandbabies. Wow. Um, okay, not allowed. All right, so Lauren, I need to move on. If you would like to schedule a private consultation so we can kind of really dig into this a little bit, you know, I only go so deep, you know, in a public forum. Um, so, you know, but if you want to schedule a private consultation, go to soulhealer.com and send me an email via that. Okay, so Ron, I want to know if a stable job is finally coming sooner in the near future. The job hint has been coming for such a long time. Just want to end the struggle already. So again, Ron, that's kind of like predicting the future. Um, you know, there's almost like too much energy that you're putting on that versus just allowing it to come and being happy with what you're doing, you know, and coming to grips with where you are versus having it be a struggle. I feel like your energy is kind of keeping the job from coming in because it's like, you don't want the struggle, keep the struggle away from me, which is keeping everything away from you. I'm not really feeling like that was all that much help. But, you know, if you could have your life be okay, you know, then things will shift. You know, they say that it's easier to find a job when you have a job. And they mean that because you're not in a desperate place and you're not struggling and you're not begging and praying, which really shifts your internal energy out there to being um, not attractive from an energetic point of view. Ken, it's not a stupid question. I just don't predict the future. Okay, so Ken was apparently upset because I wouldn't answer a question. So I don't really know what to say. Um, okay, so Xenia, I would love to give you some spiritual guidance. If you could give me an area to focus with, that would be you know, that would be great. You know, if you could kind of give me an area of life to look at, that would be perfect. Okay. And Lauren, you know, I would love to hear from you and we could really dig deep. Um, you know, Ron, and you might not like me for making this comment. You know, I'm assuming this says don't have a job at the moment. And I gathered that part. Um, but I also feel, and again, you can hate me for saying this, I'm okay with that, that there's a certain amount of ego involved. Like you want a certain kind of job versus just getting a job. Lauren, give me 1 second. So when I was married, my ex-husband kept losing his job and then his unemployment came to an end. And I looked at him and I said, okay, and excuse my French here, but I don't care if you go out and shovel shit because you're not sitting at home and not doing anything. You know, so maybe it will take some of the pressure off of you if you go and get a crappy job, because a crappy job is better than no job at all, especially if there's no unemployment or any kind of finances coming in. You know, so maybe it's time to park your ego at the door and go do that. Okay? So don't hate me for making that comment. Um, Okay, so Lauren, the link is, and I will type it in, but I can't. It is soulhealer.com, soulhealer.com. HEALER.com, soulhealer.com. Okay, Janet, so you need a reading. You've been so down in your spirit. Let me see if I can find something, or I might need more specific information from you. Ron, I'm going to make one other last comment. And I honor you that you're taking 1 day jobs. That is really great, but it doesn't, correct, soulhealer.com. Um, but something that that longer term, that gives you that sense of, oh, I have $500 coming in every week, would give you some security and a sense of safety that will help you ground yourself. So, okay. All right. So let's see. I'm backing up here a second. Okay, so Janet, she said, need a reading. I've been down in my spirit. Let's see, Janet. There's part of me that would like for you to be a bit more specific. I feel like there was a loss recently, and you have not really recovered from that loss. Um, I feel like there is healing that is sitting behind that. Um, and once the grieving process ends, that you will start feeling better, and so sometimes it's just really about giving ourselves and giving our bodies and giving our psyches a chance to heal um, and unwind, um, and not feel so down. So Janet, let me give me more information if you would, because I would like to be more specific with you. Um, okay, and Ron came back and said, that's what I asked. Thanks. Okay. All right. Okay. So there is a potential or a upcoming loss. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Um, but I want to kind of change, I want to shift the focus, Janet, and her follow comment is he hasn't had the best life, but it was his life, and what really matters is, was he happy in his life? But there's not anything that you can do to change the path that he was on. What you can do is be there and be supportive energetically and be upbeat and be present so that when it is time for him to make that transition, there isn't the energy of, I want to hold on and I want you to hold on. So, and this is going on about 10 years now. My husband was diagnosed with cancer that had metastasized, and he was not, well, this is before he had gotten any like life expectancy, whatever, but we knew that there was cancer because we had seen some of his paperwork, and that it was in his liver, in his chest cavity, in his pancreas, which said it had metastasized, and this was not a very good situation. And we went out to dinner, and I looked at him and I said, you have been fighting your whole life, and I am not going to ask you to fight for me. If you want to fight, I am behind you and I will fight 100%. But if that's not the path you want to take, then I'm going to take a step back and allow you to go. And even just saying that right now kind of brings me to tears. But sometimes you have to give the person permission and give the person space to do what is best for them, and be supportive of the choice he's making, and if it's your uncle, I would assume he's older, and, at this point in time, there's not really any place for you to intervene. And so just keeping him in your prayers, keeping him in your blessings, being there, holding space for him, I think can be one of the most important things that you can do for someone who is in that situation and in that position. Okay, so uh, Zindia, I think I asked you to. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, so you asked if I could give you spiritual guidance, and I say, can you be a bit more specific? So, no, I haven't done your question. Okay, great, Jenna. I'm glad that that helps you. Yay. Um, so, there are 3 minutes left. So, if you can toss me something a little bit more specific, I will be more than happy to respond to it. And for anybody that is watching, whether you are on the Facebook Live or the YouTube Live, if you are afraid or embarrassed, but need to get some insights into yourself, into your life, feel free to reach out to me directly by going to soulhealer.com. That's SOULHEALER, soulhealer.com, and send me a message through the website, and we can set up a time for a private consultation. Okay, so Cindy, you haven't sent me a question. And Shermanator, not sure what you mean by sympathetic shoulder. So, or are you talking to Janet? Maybe you're talking to Janet. Kind of hard to tell. Okay. Okay. So Zenny is back. I want to know if I am on the right path or spirit want me to move in a different direction. See, great question. Great question. Oh, this is kind of interesting little tidbit. So what they're sharing with me is that the path that you're on right now is where you're supposed to be in this moment. I feel like there's a piece of, excuse me. There's some information that you are either learning right now or going to be learning right now, like getting some experience, having certain kind of dynamics going on in your life. But what they're sharing with me is that you are being set up to kind of shift gears, not totally change paths, but shift gears in about 6 months. And I feel like in like 3 or 4 months, what that shift is will become apparent to you and become more the focus of your attention. What you're doing now, I feel like is coming to an end and will be stopping. But I feel like what you're doing is also good and appropriate and where you're supposed to be in this moment, if that makes sense. But I am seeing a shift in you and that focus in the next 3 to 4 months, and then you really kind of making a turn onto, kind of a fork on that path into a new and different direction. Okay, so I'm going, but I got to read this first. I don't really message people for offering them a free service, but I sent to you by Universal because Spirit is showing me that you're emotionally drained. I'm hearing so many scattered thoughts going through your head and feel like I've been on an emotional roller coaster when I tap into your energy What stands out to me is the thought that you're not good enough. Message me now, beloved. I got a strong message for you. So, shit, Abduli, get the hell off my thing and don't post crap on here. You are not welcome. Goodbye. God, I just don't really get it. Anyway, our time is up for this week. I really wish these bot reading people would leave me alone. But I will be back here next week. Please bring your questions. Invite your friends. This is an open forum. You don't have to be my friend on Facebook unless you're one of these bot people that come on here. But please bring your questions. Bring your friends. Bring your friends' questions. I kind of don't really care. I just love doing this. But I will be back here next Monday night at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. On Facebook and on YouTube. You can always send me an email at soulhealer.com and to schedule a private consultation. So until next time, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Monday Night Live. Be blessed.